Yesterday, I made a post about my book that just came out, and I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what it was like to write the book, why I wrote it, and some ideas that some of you who may have the idea of writing a book someday in the future may be interested in. So, first, they say to write about what you know, and that could not have been more true with this book, Introduction to Nanoengineering, available where fine books are sold. The book is really a distillation of everything that I know about nanoengineering. I think that there's a idea that professors sort of know everything that they're talking about, maybe a factor of 10 deeper than what they're actually talking about. But even when I lecture, I feel like if the way I'm presenting is like this, and then this is the knowledge right here, then sometimes I have a good amount of knowledge in addition, deeper than what I'm saying in class. But sometimes there's a flat line period, and what I'm saying about the topic is literally everything I know about that topic. More likely to happen in graduate classes, of course, where what I'm talking about in a grad seminar is literally how shall I say, like cutting edge. But in an undergraduate textbook, I really did know a little bit more than what I was writing in the book, but really it does cover a pretty broad range of topics, and there are certainly some areas like lithium-ion batteries, for example, that I did talk about, which are a little bit outside my comfort zone. So the final word count of the book was 120,000 words over 400 pages. I think it was 432 pages. And 120,000 words sounds like a lot. I think the normal trade paperback is like 80,000 words. And I used to talk to my friend Mark Myers, who is a colleague at UC San Diego, and he's a professor of mechanical engineering, and he also writes books, mostly self-published in fiction and poetry. And so a book is about 80,000 words or so. And I asked him, how do you have the motivation to do it? It seems like so daunting because a scientific paper is probably more like 8,000 words at most, or if it's a communication, it might be 3,000 words. And he said, if I write 500 words a day, then it only takes 160 days to make up 80,000 words. And then you spend the rest of the half of the year editing. And then you've got a book in a year. And so I think that what may be useful is the truism that you tend to underestimate what you can accomplish in a longer time, but overestimate what you accomplish in a shorter time. But if you can stick to that 500 word per day rule, you end up doing pretty good. And I actually had a lot of help along the way. So my co-author, Robert Ramji, who wrote all of chapter 15 on computation, and also took my sometimes word salad from the book and made it a little bit more readable in places, and also consulted with students where we were using the draft of the book to make the book better as we went along. So basically, I was producing chapters in real time in order so that I could teach them in the class. And that was a really good motivator. And let's see, there were a couple of things that I did that kind of made writing more fun. I bought new keyboards for writing, and actually I have one of them right here. This is a Logitech mechanical keyboard. At the time, it was about $200. And the ones that I used, I bought two of them, one for my work office and one for my home office. It's a mechanical keyboard as opposed to a membrane keyboard, so the throw of the key is a lot deeper, and it also makes a much more satisfying, like, clicky sound, and you can kind of pound the hell out of it with your fingers, and it's a very cool tactile experience that I know that people in coding like to experience. The other thing that has to do with coding-like experience is that I got to learn LaTeX, or what's spelled LATEX, on Overleaf, which is a professional typesetting tool that allows you to make equations look really good and allows you to do formatting and bibliographies in a much easier way than Microsoft Word, which I find to be super, super clunky. But there is a learning curve to LaTeX, and although Overleaf makes it a lot easier. And that was kind of fun. It was fun to be able to, go back to my days as a 10-year-old where I would kind of program crappy games in QBasic. And it was fun to kind of treat the writing process as a bit of a puzzle as well. Speaking of technological tools, about halfway through writing the book, right around late 2022, early 2023, ChatGPT had come out, and I was able to use ChatGPT for fact checking, for help in generating good practice problems. Although I don't think I used any of them that were just generated. I would generate like a lot more than I needed in some areas. I had most of the problems from old problem sets and exams that I had created for the course on which the book is based. But in areas where I couldn't think of a good problem, I would say, give me 50 problems based on this chapter, which I would plug into ChatGPT, all of my words, and it would extract questions from the text. And then I would triage. I would just X out and just delete all the bad ones, and then make the ones that were acceptable a lot better manually. I used my iPad, or my 5-year-old daughter would say her iPad, for all of the figures. I was very pleased that the editor allowed me to do hand-drawn figures for all 100 plus figures in the book. I think they turned out pretty good. I'm not a good artist by any means, but I feel that they gave the book a more personal quality than what you would have gotten with even a really nicely rendered computer generated image. I think it gives more of an impression that you're in a classroom. And speaking of being in a classroom, the other thing that the editor allowed me to do was to put QR codes at the beginning of every chapter. And if you take a picture of the QR code, or you scan the QR code, it'll take you to the YouTube video that I created as a more or less 10-minute summary on video of every chapter. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? The other thing that I tried to do in the book was to, try to explain things in multiple different ways. I tried to use humor, tried to use a lot of analogy. I hope it came off in a way that wasn't cheesy. A lot of times when you read the acknowledgments section of a book, particularly a textbook, the author will acknowledge their family or domestic partner about the freedom that they were able to experience from some, I guess, like taking the trash out and stuff like that, because doing a book project on top of a full-time job is really daunting. I think for the period of about a year, I was doing very little else at home other than writing and drawing the figures. And when you see the figures, you're going to say, these didn't look like they took you very long. But sometimes when you're doing something in a simple style, it takes even more time than if you did something in a more complex style. Overall, I really enjoyed the experience. I kind of miss it. In fact, I really miss it. I bought an even clickier keyboard for my next book project. One thing that was a bit dismaying is how expensive the book turned out to be. So $125 per copy. even for the electronic version, that seems really high, but you have to remember that the price point for an academic book, when there's only going to be a few thousand of them sold, has to cover the cost of production and editorial services, and it has to pay the authors as well, although the author cut is going to be very minuscule from this book, I assure you. I think the next book that I want to write is going to be some kind of self-published book for maybe $5 for $10 per copy on as basically a survival guide for early career researchers. And hopefully you will find that here in the near future.